Hiring outsourced cold callers, Philippines tips. A practical way to expand outbound without inflating payroll. Hiring outsourced cold callers in the Philippines can feel like you're handing your brand to someone you haven't met and hoping the market responds. The right concern isn't, can they dial? It's whether they can represent your offer credibly, qualify correctly, and generate meetings your AEs actually want. When this works, it becomes a repeatable pipeline channel. When it doesn't, it turns into churn, wasted data, and a frustrated team. The Philippines isn't an untested option. It's one of the most mature hubs for voice-based outsourcing, supported by an ecosystem that already serves Western buyers at scale. That maturity is why many B2B teams treat it as a core lever inside sales outsourcing, rather than a short-term experiment. At SalesHive, we've seen that outcomes come down to management and design, not geography. If you approach a Philippines-based cold calling team like an extension of your sales org, with clear ICP, messaging, KPIs, and coaching, you can build a dependable outbound motion that complements your broader cold email agency and multi-channel programs. Why the Philippines keeps winning for voice and SDR outsourcing. Scale matters in outsourcing because scale creates bench depth, training infrastructure, and proven operating rhythms. The Philippines is estimated to hold roughly 16% of global contact center outsourcing and supports about 1.6 to 1.8 million CX professionals, which is exactly the kind of talent pool you want when building an outsourced sales team that can grow over time. It's also an economic powerhouse in its own right, with the Philippines CX BPO sector estimated at roughly $31.5 to $38 billion in annual revenue. That level of market maturity means you can find everything from big BPOs to specialized B2B cold calling companies that function more like an SDR agency than a generic support shop. On the communication side, English fluency is a real advantage for B2B cold calling services. The Philippines ranked 20th globally and second in Asia on EF's 2023 English Proficiency Index, which typically translates into confident business conversations, especially when you pair strong reps with the right talk tracks and call coaching. Cost savings are real, but only if you buy the full system. Most teams start here, cost. Many providers and market analyses cite 60 to 70% cost savings when outsourcing call center work to the Philippines versus building the same capacity onshore. That's not just labor rates, it's also facilities, recruiting, and the operational overhead you avoid when you don't have to build an entire outbound department from scratch. That last part matters. To ground the math, the average monthly base salary for a call center representative in the Philippines is around 21,403 pesos per month. In the US, customer service benchmarks are often around $39,000 per year before benefits, tooling, and management overhead, costs that typically rise further when you're hiring SDRs and paying for sales tech. The most common mistake we see is hiring the cheapest vendor you can find and expecting a cold calling agency to magically produce pipeline. Ultra-low rates usually come with churn, weak training, and a rotating cast of junior callers who never learn your market, which can damage your brand and bury your CRM in bad notes. Optimize for value. A provider that specializes in B2B cold calling, runs QA, and shows you real call recordings is far more likely to deliver qualified meetings than a low-cost telemarketing shop. Design the program around repeatable plays, not do everything. Philippines cold callers work best when you scope them around specific, repeatable motions. Outbound appointment setting into a defined ICP. Rapid inbound lead follow-up and reactivation of old opportunities. When you try to make offshore reps handle every stage, from cold outreach to deep discovery to negotiation, you expand training time, reduce QA clarity, and make forecasting almost impossible. define success in hard numbers before you sign anything. You want clarity on meetings per rep per month, connect to meeting rate, conversion from connects to SQLs, cost per qualified meeting, and expected ramp timeline. This is where great sales outsourcing partners look less like generic cold call services and more like a sales development agency with an operating system. Plan for a real ramp instead of expecting instant ROI. With solid data and a reasonable ICP, you can often see early meetings in 2 to 4 weeks. But steady-state performance typically shows up in 60 to 90 days once scripts, objections, and targeting stabilize. If you judge the program by week 2, you'll churn through vendors without ever letting a good engine reach cruising speed. Don't do that. If you can measure qualified meetings, SQL conversion, and pipeline per dollar, you can manage outsourced cold calling like a real revenue channel, regardless of where the rep sits. Onboarding and integration, the hidden difference between failure and scale. The fastest way to break an outsourced SDR program is to treat the team like a disposable vendor. Send a script, set a quota, and disappear. When offshore reps don't get product updates, don't hear what actually closes, and don't see the downstream outcomes of their meetings, their conversations drift from reality and conversion rates fall. If you want a Philippines cold calling team to perform like part of your revenue org, they need shared context and shared accountability. Invest disproportionately in the first 60 to 90 days. That means shared playbooks, frequent call reviews, rapid script tuning, and tight feedback loops with AEs, so the team learns what qualified truly means in your business. In our experience running SDR outsourcing, the front-loaded enablement is what turns a basic outsourced sales experiment into a predictable, calendar-filling engine. Treat onboarding as a deliverable, not a meeting. Build a simple SDR pack with ICP definitions, talk tracks, objection handling, competitive notes, and a few recorded gold standard calls. Then schedule recurring coaching and QA. This is also where a blended motion helps. Your cold calling team can align with email sequences, LinkedIn outreach services, and list building services so prospects get consistent messaging across every touch. Vendor and compliance due diligence. Avoid expensive surprises. Offshore calling can involve PII, account data, and CRM access, so compliance and security can't be an afterthought. Under the Philippines Data Privacy Act of 2012, serious violations can carry fines up to 5 million PH per infraction, which is reason enough to verify your provider's controls. You want a partner that can explain access management, logging, data retention, and breach response in plain language. Ask direct questions and require direct proof. Your vendor should be able to name a data protection officer, outline their security program, and describe how they handle device security, password management, and client data segregation. If they can't walk you through these basics, they're not ready for modern B2B sales agency work, no matter how attractive the hourly rate looks. Also validate specialization, not just capacity. Many large providers are excellent for inbound support, but mediocre at B2B outbound, while smaller SDR agencies can outperform because they live and breathe appointment setting. If you're evaluating cold calling services, insist on B2B references, sample call recordings, QA scorecards, and performance benchmarks that match your market, not generic claims about dial volume. More dials isn't the goal. Performance management. Measure outcomes, not anecdotes. Executives often overreact to one awkward call recording and miss the bigger picture. Manage your outsourced B2B sales program with channel-agnostic KPIs. Cost per qualified meeting, connect to meeting rate, meeting show rate, SQL rate, and pipeline created per rep. If offshore-generated sequels close at similar rates to onshore sequels while costing less per meeting, you're winning, even if the accent sounds different than your in-house team. Use modern tooling and insist on shared visibility. The best cold calling companies combine coaching with power dialers, conversation intelligence, and clean CRM hygiene, then publish dashboards both sides trust. When your reporting is unified, you eliminate the my numbers versus your numbers dynamic that quietly kills many sales outsourcing engagements. Incentives matter too. If your vendor is paid purely on hours, the system will drift toward activity over outcomes. If you go pure pay-per-appointment lead generation, you may get low-quality meetings that waste AE time. A hybrid model, base coverage plus bonuses tied to qualified meetings, SQLs, or pipeline, usually keeps quality and volume aligned, which is exactly what you want from an outbound sales agency. Scaling the program, and when a blended team, makes the most sense. Once you have stable baselines, meetings per rep, cost per qualified meeting, and downstream conversion, you can scale headcount with confidence. Starting with 1 to 3 SDRs is usually enough to validate messaging and list quality, but output can be volatile with a single rep, so 2 or 3 often gives cleaner data faster. The goal is to turn outsourced cold callers into a measurable production line, not a guessing game. A blended model is often the highest performing path for B2B teams. Philippines reps can run high-volume calling and follow-up efficiently, while US-based strategists and AEs handle the most complex conversations, strategic accounts, or regulated segments. This approach keeps coverage broad without sacrificing credibility in high-stakes deals, and it pairs naturally with cold email agency execution and multi-channel sequencing. Outsourcing is also becoming mainstream, not fringe. Our analysis shows about 38% of B2B SaaS companies outsource some or all of their SDR function, and case studies have documented results like 2x qualified leads in a quarter after moving appointment setting to a Philippines team. If you want the next step to be straightforward, pick a specialized partner, run a disciplined 60 to 90-day pilot, and manage it like a core revenue channel with shared dashboards, QA, and coaching cadence.